Today we're making my all-time favorite vegan lasagna recipe. This recipe is loaded with vegetables, but don't let that fool you into thinking that it's not still super delicious and indulgent. Lasagna is one of those recipes that's always so warm, comforting, and really the perfect dish to serve year-round. And if you're looking for a dish to serve to your friends and family to introduce them into more plant-based meals, this is the perfect dish for that. Like any good lasagna, this one has lots of layers, so we're gonna begin by preparing all of our components, starting with chopping our vegetables. So first I'm just going to dice up one onion, and I'm using a yellow onion, but you could really use whatever kind of onion you want. Next, I'm gonna mince up 4 cloves of garlic, and I like to use my garlic mincer to save time because I don't wanna mince it with a knife. Then I'm just going to dice up 1 large zucchini, and I just do it into quarters. Then I'm going to chop up about ½ a cup to 1 cup of baby carrots. But if you have like long carrots, you could use those too. All right, so now I'm gonna use about 12 ounces of portobello mushrooms, and you could just like slice these or roughly chop them. But honestly, I like to put them in my food processor and pulse them a few times because that gives it a little bit more of like a meaty texture. But you can do it either way. I've done it both ways, and I'm gonna choose the food processor today. That's also a little bit faster. So this is the texture you're going to get from the pulsed mushrooms. I'll also be using some fresh spinach, but there's no need to chop that unless you just really want to. And I went ahead and washed mine because mine came from my CSA box and was not already washed. Once you have all of your vegetables prepared and chopped, you can just set those to the side. And now we're going to move on to our vegan ricotta. The base of this ricotta is made out of tofu, so I'm just going to use 1 block of firm organic tofu, and I'm just going to drain it. I don't press mine. Next, just break up your tofu into small pieces and place it in the food processor. After that, you're going to add in juice from 1 lemon, 2 cloves of garlic, about ½ a cup or so of fresh parsley, and I don't chop mine before I add it in because it's going in the food processor and it's gonna be chopped anyway. And adding fresh parsley really makes this dish so much better, trust me. Then you're gonna add in 1½ teaspoons of basil, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt, and pepper to taste. After that, you're going to place the lid on the food processor and blend it all together until you get a nice ricotta cheese mixture. All right, so here's the ricotta, and yes, it's gonna look kind of green, especially if you use a lot of fresh parsley, which I think the flavor is way better when you use a lot of fresh parsley. But if you don't use quite as much parsley, or if you choose to use dried, it will not be that greenish color. That's so good. So since our ricotta is done and we need the food processor for the marinara that we're about to make, we're gonna just transfer it into a different bowl. Next up, we've got the marinara sauce, and I'm using my own homemade recipe. And for the vegan lasagna, I end up using the whole batch of my marinara that I make. If you decide you wanna use store-bought, you can, but remember, this is homemade vegan lasagna. For this marinara sauce, you're going to put all of the ingredients in a food processor, beginning with 2 cans of diced organic tomatoes, 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 3 tablespoons of coconut aminos, 2 cloves of garlic, 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika, ½ a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, ½ a teaspoon of cumin, 2 teaspoons of basil, and about ½ a teaspoon of salt, and then pepper to taste. All right, let's give it a little taste. I think it's pretty good. And now that the marinara sauce is finished, I'm just gonna pour that in a separate bowl as well. Now we're gonna head over to the stove and saute our vegetables. I'm first gonna start by sauteing the onions and garlic for just a couple of minutes until they get nice and soft. Then I'll add in the rest of the vegetables, a little bit of salt and pepper, and make sure those are nice and heated through and soft as well. So when you're sauteing the vegetables, you wanna make sure to try to get as much moisture out of it as possible. So see all of this water? You want to wait until it evaporates until that's when it's done. All right, so most of the water is evaporated. So now I am gonna just put it in a separate bowl so that it's ready to layer. All right, so now that all of our components are ready and prepared, we can go ahead and layer everything together to make our beautiful lasagna. The noodles that I'm using today are these yellow lentil and brown rice gluten-free vegan lasagna sheets that I got from Whole Foods. These are no boil, which is really convenient, and I hope that it's true and that they work that way. But you could really use any kind of lasagna noodles you want. You could even use zucchini. I've done it that way before. This is what we're going with today because it also adds a little bit more protein considering there's yellow lentils. So to begin layering, you want to start with 1 whole cup of marinara sauce on the bottom, and this is so that the no-boil noodles can be very coated with the marinara sauce so they have enough moisture to bake properly. The next layer will be the lasagna sheets. Next, we're gonna do another thin layer of marinara on top of this. Next, we're gonna add a layer of ricotta and spread it all out. Then I'm going to do another layer of the lasagna noodles. Honestly, I don't know if there's like a perfect method like for layering your lasagna. So if anybody is a professional like lasagna maker, let me know. Another thin layer of marinara. Then I'm going to add a layer of vegetables. So this will just be your first layer of vegetables. So you're gonna use about half of the vegetables that you have prepared already. Then another layer of the ricotta. Then a layer of spinach. So this is the only layer of spinach that I'm doing. And now I'm going to sprinkle the top with some nutritional yeast before we put it in the oven. So now you're just going to cover your lasagna and we're gonna place it in the oven at 375 degrees for 30 minutes. And while that's baking, we're going to make our vegan mozzarella to place on top of the lasagna and then bake it again. I am using my Vitamix, but you could use whatever blender you want. To start, we're just going to add with 12 ounces of firm tofu. I just drained mine, you don't have to press it. Or alternatively, you could use half a cup of soaked cashews. Next, you're gonna add 1 cup of water, a 1/3 cup of unsweetened soy milk, 4 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 4 tablespoons of tapioca starch. This is important. This is what is going to make the cheese very stretchy and melty like you're used to. And then you need 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, juice from 1 lemon, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Once you have everything in the blender, you can just blend it all together until it is nice and smooth and liquidy. Once that's nice and blended, you're gonna take it over to the stove top and heat it in a saucepan over medium heat until it starts to get nice and thick and gooey and stretchy and melty. All right, so after 30 minutes of the lasagna being in the oven and with our vegan mozzarella cheese done, we're just going to place the cheese on top of our lasagna. And don't worry, if you feel your noodles at this point and they're still kind of hard, they will bake up and be just fine, I promise. So I just took my lasagna out of the oven. I had it uncovered for 10 minutes and then broiled it on high for an extra 5 minutes to give it some nice brown spots and make it a little bit more golden brown. And now I'm just gonna sprinkle some fresh parsley on the top for extra garnishing and extra flavor. All right, so we went ahead and sliced it up. So I have a piece ready right here and I am ready to dig in and taste it now. This is amazing. There's so many layers, so much vegetables. I love all the textures. I love the cheese on the top. I used all of it. If you liked this recipe and you're looking for a comforting dessert recipe, you need to check out my sweet potato brownies, which is right here. Go ahead, click the link, and I'll see you in the next video.